I almost made the biggest mistake of my life. One wrong second could have cost me my job, my career, and maybe even my life. I did something that, in our line of work, we're taught never to do. If you work in overnight delivery, you quickly get used to trusting people without thinking. But sometimes a feeling kicks in that you just can't ignore. That feeling when everything inside you is screaming, "Turn around and drive away." I didn't listen to it, and I still regret it to this day. Listen carefully. My name is Mark. I've been working as a food delivery driver for 2 years now. Night shifts here in the suburbs teach you two things: patience and intuition. On Thursday around 3 in the morning, I was just about to finish my shift. My eyes were getting heavy and the car smelled of stale coffee. I pressed the logout button when the app emitted a piercing beep. The last order, I usually ignore those. But the amount was strange. The customer had added a huge tip in advance. The address was in Ozerny Krai, an upscale but very old neighborhood on the city's outskirts. The houses there sit on plots spanning several acres surrounded by dense forests. I turned the car around. The order was for 3 large pizzas, 2 liters of Coke, and sauces. While I was waiting for the order at the restaurant, I noticed that fog had rolled in on the street. It was unusually thick, creeping onto the road like a living creature. The drive to Ozerny Krai took longer than I had expected. The streetlights on the highway had run out. I turned onto a narrow road squeezed between walls of centuries-old trees. My GPS started acting up. The needle was flickering, losing the GPS signal. There wasn't a soul in sight. No oncoming cars, no lights in the windows of the houses. Just me, the fog, and the steady hum of the engine. Finally, the GPS announced, "You have arrived at your destination." I braked in front of the tall wrought iron gates. They were ajar, just wide enough for a single car to pass through. I drove inside. That the driveway was long and winding. Trees closed in above it, forming a dark canopy. The house appeared suddenly. A huge Victorian-style mansion, white but appearing gray in the moonlight. Not a single window on the ground floor was lit, only a dim light above the front door. I turned off the engine. The silence was almost physically palpable. When I stepped onto the porch, I saw a note taped to the door knocker with a piece of painter's tape. The door isn't locked. I'm in the kitchen at the end of the hallway. I've sprained my ankle and can't stand up. Please bring the order inside. The money, $80 in cashes on the nightstand in the entryway. Keep the change. Thank you. All the safety rules popped into my head. Never go inside the house. But $30 in change seemed like a fortune for a 5-minute walk down the hallway. I reassured myself, this is a decent neighborhood. The person might really need help. I pushed the door. It opened silently. Inside, the house smelled of old furniture, floor wax, and something chemical and cloying-like in hospital wards. It was dark in the entryway, but light from the porch fell on a marble side table. There really was money lying there for $20 bills, held down by a glass ashtray. I turned on the flashlight on my phone. The hallway was long, with high ceilings and many closed doors. The floor was carpeted, muffling the sound of my footsteps. "Hello, food delivery," I called out. "Follow the voice," came the reply from deep inside the house. The voice was hoarse, quiet, and calm. Straight down the hallway. I'm in the kitchen. I walked on. The flashlight beam swept across the walls. There were no family photos on them, only empty frames. As I walked past one of the doors, I stopped. On the carpet in front of the built-in closet, I saw a footprint. A wet footprint from the sole of a boot, clear and fresh. But the footprint led into the closet. Someone had gone into that closet very recently, and it wasn't someone with an injured ankle. Those were work boots. A chill ran up from my stomach to my throat. I shone my flashlight further down the floor. More footprints. They all converged at that closet. "Are you here already?" A voice rang out closer, but now I heard something I hadn't noticed at first. The intonation was exactly the same as in the first sentence. It was a recording. At that moment I heard a sound behind me. A quiet, barely audible creak. The closet door began to open slowly. I didn't turn around. Dropped the bags of pizza right on the floor and bolted for the door. I never knew I could run that fast. In the darkness of the entryway, I almost ran into a nightstand, but I grabbed the $80 and dashed out onto the porch. As I inserted the key into the ignition with trembling hands, I glanced back at the house. In a second-floor window, the curtain parted for a second. I saw a pale face pressed against the glass. It was just watching. I sped off. Gravel flew from under the wheels. I didn't stop until I pulled onto the well-lit highway and saw a gas station with people at it. I called the police. 2 officers arrived. They listened to my story. At first they looked skeptical, but when I showed them the $80, one of them frowned. "Hey, where did you get these bills?" I explained. The officer took out an ultraviolet flashlight and shone it on the money. Each bill had tiny marks on it from a chemical marker. The money had been marked. It had been listed as stolen following a robbery of an armored truck 6 months earlier. "Mark, you're very lucky you didn't make it to the kitchen," the officer said when he called me an hour later. They found the house completely empty. No furniture, no food. On the kitchen floor stood a cheap tape recorder connected to a battery. A voice recording was playing on a loop. But in the closet, they found something even worse. There was a chair, handcuffs, a roll of industrial strength tape, and a camera on a tripod. Apparently they weren't planning to rob me. They wanted to film something else entirely. A piece of paper was hanging on the wall of the closet. It listed my work schedule for the past 2 weeks. They knew when I was working. The police never caught those people. I quit that very night. I moved to another state, changed my name on social media, and now I work in a warehouse where there are always lots of people and bright lights. But sometimes, when I order food to be delivered and the delivery person rings the doorbell, I stare through the peephole for a long time. Because last week someone left an envelope at my door, and inside was a note that said, "You forgot your pizza. We saved it for you."